IOSH's president and chair of council. And as part of my presidential themes for the year, one of the things I wanted to make sure that we were doing both through council and through the presidential team was connecting with the members and putting on sessions for the membership in terms of elements of change that have been happening with regards to the professional journey. Fellowship being one of those, and obviously the experiential route, which we'll do a later session in the year. So we're going to run this as a bit of a panel session. I managed to corral some friends to join us. So we've got Rick Bate with us, who is a chartered fellow, and he is one of the first people to go through the new fellowship route. Haridas is with us as well. Again, had that opportunity to go through as a chartered fellow. Nazia, again, chartered fellow. We've got Kirsty Dickens, who is the professional development and standards manager for IOSH, and Gary Monaghan, who is a fellowship assessor. And hopefully between everybody that we've brought together, we've got experience, understanding and advice to be able to kind of share in terms of the new route to fellowship and that journey. So welcome to the panel. Again, thank you very much for giving up your time. That's one of the really key things, I suppose, within IOSH, that is our volunteer network and the strength within it, and the people that are willing to help and support our membership grow and develop. So fellowship, I suppose, is a bit of what's it all about. There's a bit of what do we want to, why strive towards fellowship, and also like why have we changed the process and what's the benefits for those pieces. So I'm probably going to start actually with you, Kirsty, if I may, and just kind of talk to I suppose where we are with the new process having come in, the fact we've got some people who've gone through the new process and got their fellowship, and maybe talk to some of those changes that we've implemented as an organisation.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Stuart. So yes, the process changed and launched in November 2023. So our new and enhanced fellowship process launched then. We have had some fellows that are sitting on the panel today who have successfully completed that journey. So the changes that differ between the old process and the new process is that it's obviously an enhanced process in line with the IOSH competency framework that was developed and built and brought into place. And we have, the criteria of the competency framework links to soft skills, core skills, behavioural skills, as well as technical skills. So the changes that we've made are that obviously the criteria for entry is still 5 years. That remains in the Charter and bylaws. So that is still an entry requirement. The sort of criteria is around your seniority and the going above and beyond that you do outside of your working role, but we still also do consider elements of your working role within the criteria. You don't have to meet all the criteria, but there are mandatory criteria that you must meet within the new portfolio. So that leads in nicely around the structure of the assessment, which is that the portfolio is still a requirement, an application is still a requirement, references are still a requirement. The portfolio criteria has changed and enhanced and is completed within Blueprint Online. Now, the differences in outcomes are with the new process is that you do not have to finish the whole start from finish, leads from an application which is reviewed by the professional development and standards team, allowing you to be eligible to move forward for actually starting the build of your portfolio. Now, there are 2 possible outcomes to your portfolio, which are you proceed to chartered fellowship, as some will discuss with you today, without an interview. there are also a route which is that you pass your portfolio stage, but you are required to complete an interview, and the outcome being that you are awarded your chartered membership, your chartered fellowship, which we do have individuals within the room who have met that criteria. So there are changes within people meeting the standard at the portfolio stage for straight away chartered fellowship. And then obviously individuals that move forward, they just require that professional discussion for chartered fellowship in the interview. So that is a change from the current process to the new process. But I suppose from my perspective, it's really important that members are awarded for the additional work that they do for the profession. So if you do go above and beyond and you strive for excellence in the practice and your contribution, and you are of a senior professional role and you have high influence in the profession nationally and internationally, and you do demonstrate an outstanding commitment to the IOSH profession, and you are clearly visible in contributing to the development of the profession in a number of ways, then fellowship may be something that you want to explore, and the professional development and standards team would be more than happy to support you in that journey. I hope I've
Thank
covered
you.
as much as I possibly could.
That's great. So I forgot, because I did some bad housekeeping at the start. If you have any questions, unless somebody shouts at me immediately, please put them into the Q&A, so that I can keep a track on them and make sure that we answer those questions. There'll be time to do that. If you could avoid putting the questions into the chat, because that makes it slightly more challenging for me, unless somebody in governance tells me Q&A is not working. But I haven't had anybody frantically shout at me. So questions into the Q&A if you've got questions as we go, and I'll do my best to moderate and keep those. No apologies required, because I didn't give any formal instructions. So I feel like it was a fair place to start that piece, but you just got slightly ahead of me. I'm Nazir, I'm going to come to you next, if I may, because obviously you've been through this process recently. So I'm really interested in what drove you, or what was it that made you want to go through the fellowship process? And maybe you could just give us a bit of an overview of how you found going through the process, its challenges, your expectations versus what happened, and how you feel now that you're a fellow.
So thank you, Stuart. Just a brief introduction from my side. My name is Nasir Ariani, and I have recently been awarded Charter Fellowship under the new process system. And today it's a pleasure to be here to share my experience. So as Kirsty said that the process is much similar comparing with the previous system, the one we used to submit manually. I mean, like through emails, we were preparing the portfolio and then we were submitting. And it's almost like everything is being digitalized now. So starting from the application process until the end of the interview and panel discussion, everything is completely being digitalized. So there is a very simple process. You just go over there. There is a criteria about 10 items. You need to make sure that you have 5 years experience. And then there is a leadership role, and you have done something which is above and beyond, and you have a high influential activity in this society. So the process is much simpler, and anyone just go to the checklist, he can see the criteria and he can submit the applications. Coming back to the factors that what drive me, that why I should be a charter fellow. So I started my journey with IOSH since 2012. I got my graduate membership at that time, so now it's becoming a certified member. And I have a passion since the beginning when I started my career to be a safety leader. So the safety leader are those professionals, they are always trying to be engaged in the activity which support the societies and within the organization to promote and improve the health and safety performance. And if the health and safety performance improve, then of course there are some benefits not only to that organization, but also locally and regionally and internationally as well. So that was my passion, that I have to be involved in some of the activity. And this is what IOSH does. IOSH is giving us a platform. They are giving us opportunity to be involved in some of the leadership activity. The other thing is about that influencing and impact. So all of us, when we are working as a health and safety professional, one of the key role is to influence the health and safety within the organization. But if you like to extend that influence beyond the boundaries, you need to have some platform that where you can speak and where your voice can be influencing outside of the boundaries. So I was attending today, IOSH is giving us this platform, and I'm just giving you some example. Today I was with Richard. There was another webinar today about how the AI is impacting the health and safety. So that was very interesting because the people are coming from different background. They have different initiatives. They have different ideas. They're coming over IOSH platform, and then they are sharing their information and their good initiatives, which is going to be implemented across the globe. So IOSH is one of the organizations. They have more than 50,000 members, in more than 130 countries. So whatever you are doing on those platforms, it's not only influencing the health and safety within the region, but it has also influence across the boundaries. So there are a number of things, that being as a IOSH member, there is a lot of benefits, like you are influencing, you have an impact. You have the passion for the leadership, you have professional accreditations with one of the organizations. So all of these are the things which gave me the opportunity to be a charter fellow.
I say thank you. And Richard, I'm going to come to you next, my friend. I know you were one of the first people to go through our new fellowship program. And I know it wasn't without bumps in the road for you. So I just wondered whether you could give us your reflections on achieving your fellowship and some of the highlights from going through that process and changes that you're aware of.
Yeah, I mean, all of that, Stuart, correct. I think what was good for me is that I actually really enjoyed the process. But, I spoke to Kirsty and her team in professional development and standards early. And, it was really clear that because I was one of the first, I think I was the first or the second, Kirsty and the team were very, very upfront and said there will be some hiccups, and there were. I think it was quite clunky. I got used to seeing error codes, but rather than look to apportion blame anywhere, what I did is I sought to work with professional development and standards, and I shared with them my concerns, showed them my concerns. So I actually felt that I actually became a part of the process of improving the integration into Blueprint. One of the things that I learned very quickly is that because my Blueprint and my CPD was up to date, and I'd really put a lot of effort into my professional development plan within Blueprint, a lot of the information I needed to pull together my portfolio was already there. So I guess what I'm saying, instead of complaining and fighting the system, I'd looked to work with IOSH and look for solutions. One of the things that was really key is that I was rushing. There was no reason to rush whatsoever. The advantage of doing it this way is you can dip in and dip out when you've got time. The way I'm wired, I lean towards being, OCD. If I start something, I want to finish. This taught me to be a little bit more disciplined. And I think possibly because of my approach, it helped me guide me through my submissions. I still made some really, really silly errors. One of the things that I've probably done that people do recognize me for is the amount of mentoring I've done over the past 20 years. I mean, I actually forgot to put that in because I was so focused on other things. But if I've got time, there's a couple of really good tips that I would like to share with everybody. So when you get access to the extension on Blueprint, there's the temptation when you see the criteria and you see the information that you need to submit, is that you automatically start to write into the text boxes that are there available for you. My advice would be, don't do that. Write everything on a Word document so that you've got a backup. It's a lot easier to manipulate your words and change your words if you're using a Word document. Other thing that's really important as well is that during the submission of evidence, you're going to make cross references between the different criteria. Don't try and hold all of those in your memory. Just have a simple spreadsheet and just log your cross references, so that if you do make a mistake, you can go back and have a look. One of the things that I recognize quite quickly, with some support from Kirsty and her team, if you're going to use big documents to support your criteria, it's probably a good idea to put those documents into Dropbox and hyperlink across from Dropbox, because the system doesn't like very, very big documents, and I find that quite reasonable. But I think, if anything, the most important thing is to plan ahead. Talk to somebody who's been through the process. Anybody who's here on the call today can find me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to help. There are other, groups of IOSH members out there who have, support groups. Look for those guys as well. So I would say, don't rush. Don't forget, there's an amazing team, professional development and standards within IOSH. They're there to help you. You've got lots of colleagues within IOSH who are also prepared to help. So, prepare in advance, don't rush, and reach out to the people that can help you. That's it.
Doc, thank you very much as always. Gary, I'm going to come to you, and I did you a disservice in your intro, because Gary's not only one of our assessors, is also a chartered fellow, and is also a mentor as well. So can speak from with many hats on, should you choose to wear them. Gary's also just a very, very great human being. So I'm always glad when I get to spend some time with him. But Gary, from your side of things, as people, go to prepare for interviews, what have you, what are your advice or tips, or maybe some of the downfalls that you've seen over your time as an assessor that you could help share with people that would help them be best prepared for their journey for fellowship?
I'd say the biggest thing, and I was really interested there in Richard's perspective, because I only see it on the back end. So the one other thing that you haven't mentioned is I volunteered to sit on IOSH fellowship panels as well. So I'm here for four reasons. So hopefully I've got a lot of experience to give you. I'd say the biggest thing, what I'd say is, most people on this call will be here about potential fellowship application, but get the message over that the quicker that you do volunteering, the easier it will become to hit them fellowship standards. And that's a win-win, isn't it? Because as a volunteer, I'm sure everyone on this call who's done volunteering, I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for myself. When you volunteer for IOSH, or you volunteer for the health and safety community, you give a lot, but you get back a lot more than you'd ever give. And then the other benefit is, once you give back, the wider health and safety community benefits as well. And what I'd say is, hitting the criteria for the fellowship standards, if you're mentoring anyone, tell them to get involved with mentoring as soon as possible. Now, there's most probably 2 people on the call who work on my team who have just started in the industry. What I'd say is, get involved in mentoring get involved in volunteering as soon as possible. So that just reinforces what Nazir said before around volunteering. The other things I'd say is, make sure you hit you read the standards. That's really important. And what I'd say is, and I think you mentioned it, Stuart, and also Richard did, is try and get a mentor, because they understand the process. And another thing to realise that most people don't realise, this is not for fellowship. It's not an assessment of your competency. You do that through the old PIR route, and I know it's all changed as well. So a lot of the biggest advice was, focus on activities completed outside of the workplace and not part of your normal duties. It's quite interesting to hear that Richard's been doing mentoring for 20 years and he never put it down. Now, obviously, as Richard's just identified, that was a bit of an own goal. Didn't really matter, because he hit the rest of the standards. And that links into me next bit of advice. Don't think you have to hit all of the standards. You don't. Make sure you submit evidence relevant to all the criteria. And the final 2 bits is, ensure your CV is uploaded. That's really important, because you've got to prove that you've got that seniority in the industry. and make sure your referees meet the criteria. So obviously, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of portfolios. Most of them are good. Most of them are passed. But what I'd say as well is, most people who sit on them fellowship panels, myself included, we want you to pass. But however, we've got to ensure that there's standards there. And just one final thing that I'd say is what Kirsty just mentioned is around the new process and the assessor role. What the role of the assessor is, we make sure we quality assure each of the fellowship applications to make sure that they do meet all the standards. So we're almost marking the market, if that makes sense. I think that's it from me, Stu.
Gary, thank you as always. Haridas, I can't see you on my screen, so I just wanted to invite you in to just give us your experience.
Yeah, first of all, good evening, all of you, and thank you, IOSH, for giving the opportunity to speak about my fellowship journey. See, I started my career, with IOSH from 2008 onwards. See, 2008, when I was an affiliate member, I never had any, feeling that I'm going to be the topmost member of IOSH. If you have a vision, definitely you can achieve it. I started attending all these IOSH branch meetings that happens in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And I used to meet lots of chartered members and fellow members in the meeting program. When I interact with them, so it is a great feeling that if you are having this chartered fellowship, it's a great feeling. And when I started applied for the new process, it was very difficult because there was no earlier people, those who have completed through the new process with the support of the new methodology. So I was finding to get a mentor, the actual mentor for this process. But now the if you seen in the group, you could see lots of new members who have achieved the fellowship membership. See, only thing is that you should be having a passion. You should be maintaining the the commitment to achieve your fellowship membership. Focus on the blueprint. See, complete the blueprint. It is the stepping stone, and at the same time you have to maintain your CPDs. I used to maintain my CPDs at least once in a month. I will definitely visit the IOSH portal and used to update my CPD membership. See, as what somebody already explained, don't look at the competency part of your own personal competency, rather than look at what you are giving back to the community as a health and safety profession. That should be the objective of, once you are focusing on becoming a fellow member, your mindset would be rechanged to this mode, that whatever you have done for the community, mainly focus on your research, your publication, and what are all the benefits you are going to give back to the community as an IOSH member. It can be in the form of voluntary services or in the form of mentoring. See, lots of people now they are getting trouble to get a good mentor. See, if you can become a good mentor, definitely people will come through the recommendation. They will approach you, and you can give mentoring to many health and safety professionals. So that is the success area of my side. I used to give mentoring to many people especially from the UAE region. And it was not invited by myself. They came to know from the LinkedIn or some other profiles. And I used to give, even after the fellowship, I do that. So keep mentoring, and at the same time you start keep volunteering yourself. Any perspective with respect to health and safety, whatever the mentoring you are doing it, as well as the volunteering services you are doing for the community, it's value added. At the end, see, as a health and safety, see, I am in this field for more than 24 years. Now I'm in a feeling that I'm doing something for the health and safety community as well as to the nation. I am giving something back to my home country as well. So this is about my experience. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Haridas, and thank you for the work that you're doing for both the safety community and locally as well. And I think that's a really cool point to just pick up on, with that kind of the social impact of the additional things that we do as we go and achieve our fellowship. Kirsty, I'm just going to come back to you because I'm going to try and hit 3 different sub questions within the Q&A and chat. So I'll just remind people, if you have a question, please put in the Q&A, because that makes my life easier. And I'm quite a simple creature. So, but but these are all on volunteering. So somebody's asked about the fact that they mentor in a different institution to the ICE, and they're supporting graduates on their journey towards corporate membership. Like, is that suitable evidence of volunteering? And then I'll just expand on the question. So people have just asked for a bit of guidance on what constitutes volunteering and kind of those examples outside of the work related role. So I wondered whether you could just help with some context, and then I'll ask other panels for kind of their examples of what they demonstrated on their journey.
Of course. So I think it's as clear as this. It's outside of your paid role. And volunteering is about giving back to the industry that you work in. So I believe that based on how Stuart's articulated that to me, that would be a really good example of how individuals are working through, how the individual is supporting individuals to move through the progression of a career within the IOSH industry. So that's a really good example of volunteering. Obviously, if you're doing it in your day-to-day work and you're actually paid to do that, then you're going to really struggle to demonstrate that in your portfolio of evidence. So the best way for me to explain is voluntary. You're not getting paid for it. It's in the title, and you're doing it within the IOSH industry to support the profession. I hope I've answered that, Stuart.
Grant, no, that's really good. I'm just going to come back to Rick, actually. I just wondered whether you could give an example of whether you had any other voluntary work outside of the IOSH stuff that you leveraged in your fellowship portfolio, just to give us an example.
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with Motorsport UK. I did reference that, I think, just perhaps one of my submissions, but I'm also a council member of the National Outdoor Events Association, and in my 10 or 12 years on IOSH, on the NOAA Council, I've worked particularly around the sustainability area, again as a volunteer, and I've been lucky enough to be able to do some volunteer work at Glastonbury, through Emily Evis, the daughter of Michael, who started the Glastonbury Festival all those years ago. One of the things that it was made really clear to me from the start is that the work I've done with IOSH at branch level, that's great. And as Gary has already pointed out, what the assessors are looking for is what you're doing more broadly. And then when I looked at what I'd done through my work, and the conferences I'd spoken at around the world, been very, very lucky in my career, to have the opportunity to do that. If I hadn't taken the time to think about the criteria, and again, as Gary also said, I recognized earlier on that I wasn't going to be able to meet all of those criteria, so I focused on the areas where I knew I was strong. But I think my work with NOAA was probably maybe about 50% of my submission, because I think there is that some of the work I've done with NOAA, particularly around helping to support some of their initiatives around crowd management and temporary structure safety. I thought that added relevance to my portfolio, and also helped me meet the criteria within the requirements of the portfolio.
Thank you very much, Doc. Really, really appreciate that. And hopefully for those people that are asking kind of for examples of what constitutes volunteering, and can you use examples outside of the world of IOSH, then there's a plethora of examples there. There was a question on mentoring, which I hope we kind of covered off, but obviously IOSH has a mentoring platform where you can go to and sign up to be mentored, and if you don't have success there, or if you're struggling, also if you find Stan Brown, who's on this call, I know Karen McDonnell and some of the others on LinkedIn, there is a kind of fellowship support WhatsApp group. If you message one of those, they will add you to that and help with support there. I can see somebody else has popped that in the chat as well. So that's another avenue to seek some support from people that have helped a number of people towards their fellowship. And I'm sure Stan's busy just trying to get the link to his LinkedIn profile or something to pop into the chat for you. What I would just like to do, I suppose, is Kirsty, there's a question here on is there guidance on what constitutes a decision that a portfolio requires an interview? So maybe you could just help us understand like route A and route B.
I think, to be honest with you, there are two individuals in the room that actually went down one process and the other. I hope you don't mind sharing your stories if they feel comfortable to do so. But ultimately, the criteria is set for the assessor, which does go, they've actually hit the majority of this criteria within the portfolio. An interview is not required. An interview will come into place when the assessor feels that they need to actually have the individual in front of them to question certain areas that was built in their portfolio, so they can actually be satisfied that the portfolio is the individual setting before them and that their criteria meets each of the standards. So it is more of a test to ensure, not a test, more of a review to ensure that the individual sitting before them is the individual that's provided that evidence. But yeah, there are areas where an individual will go straight through, but they've actually met the criteria and there is nothing further that the assessor can question them on, and they feel comfortable and satisfied that the individual has met the full criteria. I hope that helps that question.
Yeah, and look, I'm quite happy not to be master of ceremonies at this bit because I don't know who went down which route. So if we want to do kind of the direct, if you want to take over and direct people to share their
They've just come on
experience.
mute. They've just come on mute. So I'll allow that individual to go through the process and from their perspective.
Are you pointing at me?
I am, yes,
Yeah,
but you spoke up first, so technically I haven't broken any rules there.
No, you haven't. Yeah, I was lucky enough not to be interviewed. And I actually think one of the reasons why I probably wasn't interviewed is because some of the challenges I faced around the actual platform in the early days forced me to slow down. And by slowing down, I got to, again, we've already mentioned Stan, so let's Stan and Karen, I joined their support group on the WhatsApp support group. I learned some really useful things on there. But again, I'm going to go back to something that I also mentioned earlier on. I actually logged what I was doing on a spreadsheet, particularly the when I was cross-referencing between different criteria. And when it came to that point where I was just about ready to push the button, I still forgot one of the most important things, but it gave me something to reflect on. And I'm not a person who generally does things slowly. I like to focus on a task, give it my all, and then deliver really quickly. In this instance, this isn't a process that works well for that mindset. Gary's also mentioned that you need to keep, checking what you've done. And again, there is that huge amount of support out there. And because I listened to people, I spoke to a lot of people as well. I kind of thought, yeah, you're a bit weak in that area. Reflect back on what you've done in your career and what can you draw out so that you meet that criteria without a reason for your assessor to come back with a question. So, I'm not going to say the same things I said previously, but reach out to the people there that can support you. There is an amazing community out there around the moving towards fellowship, and I really strongly recommend that you lean into those people because they're a huge repository of information for you.
All right, thank you very much. I'll let one of the people that did go through the interview process tell us about their experience. Nasir, you're on mute if you're talking to us, my friend.
Yes. Okay.
There we are. Thank you.
Okay. So basically, I was lucky. I was interviewed twice for the charter fellowship. This is the new process, the blueprint process. So the first time when I was interviewed, there was some technical error, and I believe that IOSH code of conduct that the interview has to be recorded, and then it was not further proceeded. So I was contacted by IOSH that you have to have another interview because there was some technical error and that's not properly recorded. So in both interview, when somebody submit the portfolio and you got the notification that you have successfully completed the process and you are invited now for the interview. So first of all, the good thing is that the new system is having an online system where you can go and can select the interview time based on your convenience. So earlier you have to send an email and you ask the time that IOSH can give you 2-3 times. That might not be suitable for you. But now with this new process, you click on the link and there are assessors. You click on their names and then you can select the time which is convenient for you. So the interview, both of the interview, what I felt that they would like to see in a more broader perspective that whatever you submitted in portfolio, so they need to understand. And I would just like to highlight one thing which is really very important. So one of the criteria is that future contribution. So IOSH is asking you that what you're going to do in the near future for the OSH community. So my recommendation that everyone has to be very clear about that one, that what you are going to do, how you are going to do, and when you are going to do. This is very important. So I have heard from a lot of charter fellow that this is one of the critical parts because you have to prove that one, that this is something big which can support the community, at a broader level. The other thing in the interview process that when the interviewer is asking some information, we have to be, giving full reflection that what I have done, how it went, what were the challenges, and what were the benefits and opportunity to the OSH community. We cannot just say that I have done something and that helped me out. So you have to prove that one, that you have done something which impacted on the community, not only for a single person or a few number of people. So these are the two things that what I felt in the interview process that we have to focus a lot. The remaining thing is just very simple process. The interviewer would like to see, how the things been gone with you and how you have done that one. So very simple process, but we have to be very careful about the future contribution. And when we are providing the reflection, so we have to give the full answer that what were the benefits, how it was done, and how is the impact on that one for the community. So that was interview process from my side.
Great, thank you for that. And then Gary, I'm just going to come to you because it comes to the natural point here. So I kind of like the portfolio submitted, you do a review, you're thinking about whether we interview or not. Just you might have some things that you look for or just some advice or help there.
So most people on here won't know the process. In fact, because only people who assess the fellowship understand the process. So I'll tell you what happens once you've hit the criteria and you've submitted your portfolio. It gets sent into the IOSH team who think that they've hit the criteria. It then gets sent out to 3 fellowship assessors and they independently review it and score it to meet the threshold of hitting the IOSH fellowship criteria. Also, when them 3 people, they do make a suggestion under the new thing. Need an interview, don't need an interview, or don't hit the standards. And what they will do, if you need an interview, they will look at the criteria and then possibly give questions for whoever attends the fellowship panel. Now, when you're on the fellowship panel, there's no set questions. The important thing to realize is the whole questions are based on what you've submitted. So the more evidence that you submit, the better the evidence you submit, the less likely you are to go for an interview. And then once you go to the interview, you'll get asked to do a 10-minute presentation at the start. It lasts an hour, and then you'll just get asked questions from your portfolio that relate to the criteria. Then what happens at the end of the interview? The person who's doing the application will get asked to leave, and then 3 people there, the IOSH representatives say, "Can you give me your opinion?" And it's just a pass or don't pass. If there's 3 members and it's got to be 2v1, so it's not unanimous.
Gary, thank you. I really appreciate those.
Just one final thing, sorry, Stuart.
No
and
problem.
then, I forgot to mention the role of the assessor. The assessor then marks the portfolio to make sure that the people who've done the assessing, who are all volunteers, have marked them fairly and against the standards.
Thank you. Kirsty, I can see you're doing a great job answering questions by typing in as well. I'm going to pick up on one in there, but I can see, Jason, you've popped your hand up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Come on in.
Apologies, Stuart. I didn't know whether I could put my hand up and ask a question. I'm just curious in relation to something what Gary's mentioned there. So I'm familiar with the peer review interview process because I'm a volunteer in that respect. But just going back to your comment, Gary, in relation to applicants asked to leave and then the decision's made and it's either a pass or a fail. If it is a fail, as an example, do we provide, or does IOSH them or the examiners provide feedback in relation to potential opportunities, etc., to ensure that they can be more successful in the future?
Yeah, it's a good point, Jason. I forgot to mention that. Thanks for that, mate. Yeah, so what we'll do, if it is fail, and if it is more than 2 people who say fail, we all independently give feedback to the person from the IOSH team, and they give their feedback to the member themselves. And I forgot to say, usually it's 20. The maximum is 21 days before you hear about whether you've been successful or not. Usually, usually it's about 10-15 days, but it depends what's happening.
So that 21 days is identical to the peer review interview process regarding charter membership. Brilliant, thank you.
And just one further question, Jason. Obviously, you've been on the panel, on the PRI panel. There's set questions. There isn't for the IOSH fellowship because it's relating to the individual's portfolio.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And I've picked up on some comments. I've already reached out to Keith and through LinkedIn, etc., because I'm actually on that journey now as we speak. So having some of these conversations, it's invaluable because I am conscious and I'm also curious, nobody's mentioned it yet, in relation to the new process from a cost perspective, it's considerably dearer in relation to the previous one. So obviously from a value perspective, it's great that we're having these conversations and the fact that people are there willing to support and help. So thank you very much. I'll now put myself on mute. Sorry, Stuart.
No, I never apologise for joining in, Jason. There's no problem with that whatsoever. Thank you for your questions. And look, this is exactly why we put these things on, aren't they? You know, there'll be a number of people on here that are in the journey that are looking for help, support, guidance. We've got some people that have been willing to share their experiences with us today, and also been able to kind of make people aware of the support groups and mechanisms. And if you know, if a healthy proportion of the kind of 200 people that join the call are able to seek some support and progress to fellowship, then that's fantastic. We may cover cost or not. I'll let Kirsty decide whether she just wants to kind of talk on value, but I know that is we are where we are with that, and there is mechanisms and rationale behind that. I'm not going to dive down to that because I really want to focus in on supporting people. But there was a question here about and Kirsty, I just want to get your guidance on this. Obviously, when you get to fellowship, you've probably got more than 5 years experience behind you. You've got kind of quite this, a vast safety career and experience. How do you can you pull on all of that stuff through the portfolio build and through the interview, I suppose, and just making sure that, you're utilising all of your experience?
Yes, I've just answered that question as it came through, Stuart. I was typing it away. Yes, you can. The minimum is 5 years. We're not saying only keep it to 5 years. That's just basically giving you a criteria that should you not have more than 5 years in the seniority, have experience within a senior role, it's probably not the time for you. But if you've got more than that, we're not going to go, please, can you cut down your CV and not tell us everything? That's up to you. So take the time. That's a minimum. Add as much as you want in there. If you've got 25 years experience, absolutely fantastic. And yes, you can obviously explain that through your portfolio. You can explain that through your CV, as long as it meets the criteria and you are meeting the mandatory criteria and the evidence is available in within the portfolio, then yes, please do share as much experience as you can, as long as it's relevant.
Thank you. And look, I can see other people just kind of throwing their hat in the ring for support and guidance and mentorship. So yeah, use the chat function to offer that to people. That's great, and I'm sure people will be taking that up. In a few minutes time, I'd like to just switch tack slightly and just give everybody on here an update on the governance review and the kind of future of council piece. So I just encourage you all to stay around for that, so I can communicate some stuff to you if you don't mind, just to hijack the end of that meeting. But I just want to kind of just, I suppose, open up to the people that are on the panel just to see if there's any last words of advice, guidance, support, or anything that you want to offer the people that have joined us to hear about fellowship. So I am going to start with you, Haridis, and then I will come to Richard, then we'll go to Nasir, then we'll go to Gary last. It's okay.
Yeah, please focus on the 14 points on the fellowship candidate guidance. If you look at the 14 points, and if you have solid evidence to support the questionnaire, it will be supporting you for supporting the applications. And most importantly, your truthfulness is very, very important. During the interview, it was not an interview actually. With me, it was a kind of a discussion, and during the discussion, he tried to understand whatever I have presented in the petition, it is the truthful. I explained him that that the 24 years of my experience itself is the example of my truthfulness. So to all the fellow aspirants, please look at the 14 points, read it for 2-3 times, and understand what is the real meaning of that 14 points. Of course, you can be a successor.
Right. Haridis, thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining us. Richard, over to you for a little words of wisdom.
Don't rush and use the resources that are available to you. Kirsty and her team are really, really good. They'll always come back with your questions. They may not answer your questions immediately because they're a small team that have a big workload, but they always do come back. And I'd like to finish by actually throwing it to Kirsty. Kirsty, I've noticed people are asking questions in the chat. One of the questions that's come up several times is when people enter the process, how long do they have to complete it? So I'm going to pass that one to you.
Thank you. And thank you for your kind words in terms of everyone. There are problems. We are trying to fix them. It's not always going to be smooth sailing, but to have the positivity from everybody has been absolutely outstanding. So you all made me realise why I'm doing this job and why I want to improve processes for the members. So thank you so much for your valuable feedback. So the process is for 12 months. There isn't, I completely appreciate Richard's feedback in terms of take your time, but there is a time pressure, and that is a 12-month process. So yes, the timeline from registration to endpoint, you must have completed all your assessment structures within the 12 months. Thank you very much, everybody.
I love it when I'm not in control anymore and we pass it around. Nasir, just some final words from you, my friend.
Yeah, so Charter Fellowship is a level of membership, basically, which IOSH is expecting that you have done something above and beyond. So if anybody would like to reach that membership level, first of all, he needs to engage himself, on a leadership role. So what is normally happening, one of the challenges most of the members are facing is they're rushing the process. They want to get the Charter Fellowship, but they are not looking fully to the guidance which is provided by the IOSH. So IOSH provided the guidance, which include every single item that they're expecting from Charter Fellow to have this one before applying for the membership, for that membership. So my recommendation to everyone that when they are willing to go for that process, they have to go through the documents. They need to check each criteria, and there is not a single criteria that they are just only focusing on one criteria, but there are multiple options. So if somebody is not having one criteria, he can go to the other criteria. So there are a lot of options, and the best thing is to make sure that you read it carefully, you get all the information, and then you can start work on your portfolio. The other thing is CPD should also have some leadership reflection. We shouldn't be just adding our day-to-day activities like somebody's involved in the document preparation and stuff like that one, which is our day-to-day practices. So when we are submitting the portfolio, when they're doing the CPD checks, IOSH is doing the CPD checks. So they want to make sure that what have you done. So my recommendation to make sure that we have added some leadership activity in the CPD as well.
That's it. Thank you, and I really appreciate your contribution as well. Gary, I'm going to give a final word to you, and then we're going to head into an update on our governance review.
So it was going to be quick, 3 things, but Nasir's just mentioned the importance of using the blueprints for your CPD and reflection. That's really important, and will help you to cross-reference. If you start using it correctly, start using that blueprints against the criteria, and you can self-assess yourself. Second thing I'm going to say is, well, I'm not going to give the advice that I've previously given, but I just want to expand on the point what Kirsty's just said about the 5 years. When I went for my fellowship in 2021, and I submitted evidence from the late 90s when I started being a health and safety professional in early 2000s. But as long as it's relevant to all the criteria. And the final thing, Stuart, is I can't believe you haven't mentioned it, but that wonderful campaign you're involved in around you getting more female fellows.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah, I think one of the things that is evident is that there's a gender imbalance across the fellowship, and one of the things that we would like to do over the coming period of time is to help and support more females to attain fellowship. And I think, again, we can kind of see by, if you kind of take a rough count, I think we've got about 14% of the attendees today is female. So I know we're kind of male skewed in the profession, but we've had some discussions on some of those barriers. There is a campaign called Put a Pin in It. We'll be doing some further work with IOSH to look at some of those challenges and to kind of, I think, further enhance and support our female population to fellowship. And I suppose my request is that if anybody is willing to help and support with that, just reach out to me, and I'll gladly take your kind offers of help. Thank you to everybody who's joined. Gary, thank you very much. Always appreciate your time. Richard, thank you to everybody else that's formed part of the panel. Don't all rush away. I know I said the words governance, but I promise you this is an interesting piece. It's we've had a consultation period on the future of council, and we've been undertaking some work to make council fit for the future. So this work started in Lawrence Webb's presidential term, where council voted to undertake a review of its own effectiveness. I inherited the report of that, and we have created a steering group to look at that report, the benchmarking data against other similar organisations, and put some recommendations to council to undertake a special resolution, which will be put before the membership at the AGM. So the reviews basically considered the kind of the makeup of council and the presidential team, looking at how people get onto council in terms of that selection process, also how people join the presidential team, and part of the review is how do we make both of those fit for the future? How do we make them more accessible for people? How do we make it a more robust process that we get the best people a seat on council? And also, how do we ensure that in terms of time commitments for presidential team, that we make those as equitable as possible? So there's a number of changes that are in draft form at the moment, and have kind of been sent to the Privy Council to just make sure that they're happy with what we're proposing. Nothing can happen until we get to the AGM and the vote, and obviously, it's been quite a lot of hard work on that so far, and I'm hopeful that the vote will go in the right direction. But we obviously wanted to come out to the membership and consult with the membership on the proposed changes. So we had a consultation period that ran through from May through to July. There was a website. We did a few drop-in sessions, gathered feedback from people, and all of those elements we've brought all of that content together, if you like, and I'm hoping there's an infographic that comes with some of the feedback. So we had 46 responses on the actual survey on the kind of size and scope and shape of council. Now, you might think that's a low number out of all of our membership. I'd agree, it is. We pushed stuff out there. We had considerably more people than that come and give their opinions in person, but people that completed the survey, I would say a low number, but this is just to give you a flavour of where people are. So we are looking to reduce the size of council to make it more effective, and the proportion had agreed with the logic of that. We also are looking to reduce the number of vice presidents, and again, that's designed to make sure that we have the right number of people that can be active and actually delivering stuff on behalf of the membership, rather than having people who have a title but perhaps not so much to do, depending on where we are with different elements of the ambassadorial role. We had quite a high percentage of people agree with the changes to the eligibility criteria for president-elect. So we want to open up the opportunity to apply both to the vice presidents and president-elect positions. Basically to cast our net wider and give people the opportunity to apply from a few more avenues than they would have had before. And then the immediate past president role, we're moving from a functional role to a title only. And one of the rationales for that is it means that somebody's commitment to becoming president-elect, president and IPP reduces from 3 years to 2 years. 3 years is quite a lot to take on. I'm almost 2 years in, 1 year ahead of me. I know that it's a big commitment, but for those that perhaps are put off by 3 years, 2 might just be a little bit more manageable. And then we're looking to move our selection process to a kind of formal recruitment process over the election process. And again, the respondents had quite a high correlation in terms of an agreement with that. You can find all of the details on the proposals and the information on the IOSH website. We've approved the special resolution at council. We've done the initial submission to the Privy Council. We're working hard at the moment on your behalf in terms of the preparation of the approval documents. And then this comes for vote at the AGM in November. One of the reasons that I've asked you to hang around and listen to this for me is because quite a lot of the people on this call will be corporate members who have the ability to vote at the AGM. It's not always a high turnout in terms of voting. So I'm just appealing to those to kind of cajole people along to vote at the AGM on this special resolution and help us to make these changes to council so that we can reshape, resize and serve the membership better. So if that vote's successful in November, our preparation work turns into a formal submission that then goes to the Privy Council, and that would mean that we're in essence able to change those bylaws, and then we get a decision from the Privy Council subsequent to their meeting. So here's the proposed timeline. You can see in front of you, we are in that fun June to November bit that we've done the consultation. Our working group is working hard on what those changes to the bylaws look like, what the changes to standing orders and rules look like, so that we've got very clear and concise information on that. As I've said, the membership vote happens in November on the 13th. You can vote ahead of that, so just keep an eye out for that communication, and then we will see what happens. But if everything goes to plan, council council will reduce in size anyway, so we've not run council elections this year whilst this process has been ongoing. And once that vote has occurred, if it goes in favour, we will start that process as I've mentioned, and then following year we will start to operate with our slimmed down council. I don't want to keep people beyond the hour, so if there are questions, I'd just encourage you to pop them into the Q&A, and then we will take those away and kind of come back to participants with information on that. I'd really like to thank you all for joining today. Having been through my journey to fellowship this year, I know it can feel a bit apprehensive. I know it can feel like it's quite a big challenge, and I know that there's a lot of work involved in it. But hopefully from being here today, you can recognise there is a lot of support both within IOSH itself and within the membership to help you along on your journey. So I'd actively encourage you to reach out to all of the different mechanisms that we spoke about, through the mentoring platform, through the WhatsApp groups, through Kirsty and her team. And if you are on that journey, from me to you, I wish you every success in it. And if you don't get there the first time around, I just offer the bit of please don't be disheartened and understand where you might be able to make some of those improvements and come back and go for it again. I'd really like to see, you know, more people attaining fellowship, and as Gary mentioned, a push for a higher proportion of our female members to attain fellowship as well. It would be great to try and get that 80-20 mark closer towards 50-50. Thanks for the time, thanks for the attention, and yeah, I hope that it's nice to see all the comments in the chat that you found it a useful part of your afternoon/evening. So thank you very much for being engaged, asking questions, and being with us today. Take good care, and I'll speak to you all soon.